Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And the coach has aged 20 years since our last podcast. It seemed like it was yesterday.
20 years and one day to be exact, Andrew.
That's true.
I appreciate you bringing up my announcement on the pod yesterday that it was June 26, 2001. Lord.
Yeah, it is challenging to keep track of the days, the times here with these Olympic tip-offs.
It is.
The
But
names.
20 years off, I don't know, Andrew.
Right.
That one's
But you did a great job breaking down these teams. So in case you missed it and you want a recap of, let's call it round one, the first round of games, go back and check out that pod on the YouTube channel. But today, Coach, we've got another 4-game slate on DraftKings to break down. It starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. We've got Group A and Group B.
Correct.
So 4 games. And I'm excited. We've got a lot of knowledge now. We've watched all these games, and I'm ready to break it down. I'm excited.
I am too. I know we chatted a little bit last night, and we're both, fired up. I mean, this is where we get the major edge. I think we're in good position the rest of the way through the Olympics. So I cannot wait to dig in and get after this this set of games.
All right. Well, let's start with Germany and Nigeria. It is the first tip-off here, 9 p.m. Eastern. Nigeria, 4.5-point favorites. Both teams coming in here 0-1 in Group B. Tough losses on both sides. Over under here, 165.5. And I'll start with Germany. They had that 10-point loss to Italy, and now they're going to try to get squared away against Nigeria. And with Germany, one thing I want to start with is a general observation that something that jumped out at me with this first round of games is how many of these teams had a different starting lineup in the second half as compared to the first. And I think it's really important to not get distracted by the box scores, who's starting, and even sometimes the minutes, because they can change. And so, if there's one thing to look at, I do think it is the minutes, because we want to have the guys in the stretch run out there playing. Obviously, we don't care if they start, if they finish and they get the minutes we want. So you got to throw out the starting lineup a little bit. In my book, the guys for Germany were Giffey, who, as you said yesterday, he's not on our radar. He did start and get 20 minutes. Yeah. Bonga, however, who started the first half but not the second, he is on my radar, and I think he's a nice value here. 4,600. He is a center, but he had stats across the board, 27 minutes, and had more of an offensive focus than we've seen in the NBA. He actually took and made a couple threes in the second half. He even had a couple of plays where he got the ball at the top of the key and drove to the basket and scored. Yeah. And we just didn't see that from Bonga in the NBA. More of a defender, maybe catch and shoot, but just not much usage. But with big minutes and a guy who can fill up the stat sheet at 4,600, I'll take a look at him. Now, the other guys who started the first half in the first game, Obst, Barthel, and Voigtman, Obst hit 4 threes. So, he's got some upside as a $3,900 point guard. But Barthel didn't start the second half. Voigtman, I think, is a little pricey for the amount of shots he got. So, the only starter from game one that I'm looking at really is Bonga. And then off the bench, we have Malo Lowe, who did start the second half, finished with big minutes, 24, 4, and 4. He was really their best player in terms of value. And he's only 6,800 here as a point guard. I do like him here, and got up 12 shots, 6 of 9 on 3-pointers. And a couple of those were high degree of difficulty step backs. So I don't know if he can match 6 for 9, but his stroke looked good. I know you like him as well, Coach. So he's in the mix for me. I think Wagner's a little overpriced at 8,600. He did start the second half, didn't start the first, but still only finished with 21 minutes, and he's 8,600. So I think that's a little bit much. And then there is a value option of Tiemann, 3,700. He got 20 minutes. He'll mix it up and get some rebounds, a few buckets. but you don't need to go there. I really think it's Lowe or Bonga for me, the two guys I would consider.
Yeah, no, that's a great breakdown. For me, it was very interesting to watch that game. I got the most out of watching that initial game with Germany because you saw really who they were going to go to. And I think they were still figuring it out, like you said, because they even changed their starting lineup at halftime. So trying to see who was going to step up and be those key figures. And pretty much echoing a lot of what you said. I think Mo Wagner's okay, but not at 86. If he was in the 6,000s, then I'd give him a run. But I don't feel that he's a guaranteed. We always talk about that sweet spot to be at least 25 to 28 minutes or more. Then you can feel a little bit more comfortable. I'm not sure he gets there at that price. I agree with you on Bonga. We talked about it. He's going to get some stocks because he's a real good defender. But we were a little afraid because offensively he has a tendency not to step up. But in this situation at this competitive level, I think that he is stepping it up. My concern is I think Nigeria is going to come out pretty furious. They got smacked in that first round by Australia. Their expectations were medal bound. So I'm a little worried that Nigeria comes out and stifles Germany a little bit. So I'm not sure I want to go back to Bonga, but I do agree with you that I do have more interest in him than I did in the first round because he's got some kind of role offensively, whereas that's an afterthought when he's playing in the NBA. I'm with you on Lowe. I think Lowe was, I mentioned it on the podcast yesterday, he was one of the more impressive guys on the foreign teams that I didn't know anything about. And I just thought he was smooth, clutch. It didn't look like a fluke that he just chucked some threes. I mean, they were, good shots. They were in balance. They looked very smooth. And I think I would be shocked if he doesn't start this game, since he did start the second half and he was their best player. So Low at that price of 6,800, I think is a really nice play. I doubt we'll see him that cheap in the rest of the Olympics. So I want to definitely take a shot there. As far as the Nigerians, we'll switch to them in a minute, but they have so much depth too. And I think that's going to create a little bit more rotation for some of the Germans. They're going to have to use a little bit more bench because Nigeria will just run them off the court. So this is not a key game for me. I mean, it falls into that parameter at 165 and a half right now, over under. And it is only a 4.5 point spread. So it has the potential of being a good DFS game, but my gut tells me Nigeria hammers them a little bit. And I think, after Low, I'm not too crazy about going any deeper with the German team.
All right. How about the Nigerian side?
Well, we're back in that whole deal. We've talked about that in the previous show. We talked about it in the first round. Their rotation is their rotation. Mike Brown is going to play 12 guys. He's going to play 10 deep in a really good rotation of players. And it just, it gives you pause because, you're going to have to get maximum effort and results in 20 minutes, basically, for anybody you want to play here. Now, it may leak a little bit over that, but, we don't expect or project any of these guys getting 25, 30 minutes even. So that makes it very difficult. The two guys that were tempting for me, and I'm hoping start sliding into a little bit of additional minutes, and that's Precious Achua and Jordan Nwora. I think they're both, a little more seasoned than a lot of these guys. I think that they may be the go-to guys that emerge out of this group. But, with that whole scenario of Okafor, Vincent, Agata, Metu, Okogie. I know, there's some people that like Okogie because he stepped up a bit. Udo didn't play much, Nwama, but Paula, all these guys are going to get minutes, and even Oni. So Not right as of right now. I'm sticking with the plan from day one and fading Nigeria just based on minutes and usage. So it's a little risky because they're a good team, but I think it's the way to go because you can also get burned and roster one of these guys and he gets 12 minutes or 16 minutes and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think on the main slate, I'm not too excited about investing in Nigeria for the reasons you said. I think Okogie is interesting to me at 4,400 because he's a shooting guard, which most of these key guards are point guards. So you got to find one shooting guard, obviously.
Right.
And Okogie is the type of guy that I don't like playing for regular NBA DFS because I just don't trust his offensive game. But he is athletic. He'll mix in some stocks, and I like his price. So he's in consideration for me. If I had to play somebody else, I wouldn't mind Achua as a power forward. 5,900 I think is fair. And then Nwora, he really stood out to me in that second half where he got more minutes, more shots. He stepped it up, and I think he's their best scorer. 4,000 small forward. I think he's a decent GPP option.
I agree.
But it is hard to trust any of these guys in cash. So if you're playing a single game slate, those would be my three favorite options. And then I will mention Emagano. He came off the bench and he was really kind of their leader when he was out there. And the other thing I noticed that they didn't really have a true point guard. I know Vincent led the way when he was out there, but that's what I think they're lacking. They don't have an experienced leader at point like a lot of these teams have who have more of a veteran like DiColo and Rubio. So I think that's their Achilles heel in these Olympics, and because of that minutes distribution, I'm not fired up about Nigeria here on the 4-game slate.
Yeah, their depth is what plays against DFS, no doubt about it.
Right. All right, Coach, let's go to game 2. It's the U.S. squad against Iran. And U.S., after that disappointing loss, they are now 40-point favorites against Iran, total of 167. And it's a rough scenario for Iran with a U.S. team coming in here upset after that loss. And I'll start with Iran. They were sort of a nice surprise to lose by only 6 against the Czech Republic after being down big in the first half. They made a nice comeback. But the thing I noticed about their squad is their wing players, I think, are a little bit lacking in the lateral quickness. So I think the U.S. wings are just going to really dominate and put up big numbers. And so I think it's going to be hard for Iran to keep it close. And really, offensively too, I think they're going to be in a tough shape. They had some guys who shot it pretty well, but the length and athleticism of some of these U.S. guys, I think, is going to make it difficult for them to shoot as well as they did against the Czech Republic. Right. Now, on the flip side, there's some pretty good prices for those key guys, and they played big minutes. I think Iran is one of the only teams that plays a more traditional rotation of starters. Subs come in just to give them a breather, and then the starters are back out there. So you do like that. And if you're playing the single game, the showdown on DraftKings, you can get a couple of these guys because they're really cheap, and they're cheap on the main slate. So
yeah, they are.
They're 3 key guys: number 14, number 88, number 13. Kabarami, Yakshalada Kordi, and Jamshid. They all scored it, put up decent fantasy points, and they're all in that $3,500 to $4,000 range. You could go with one of them. But for me, it's probably more likely to get one of them on a showdown slate. So, probably going to fade those guys. Not going to play anyone off the bench. The other 2 starters, we've got Kazemi and Haddadi. Kazemi, I don't think does enough offensively to be considered. Haddadi, he was their big guy that they did run a lot of offense through. He got 4 assists. He averages over 4 assists, and
Yeah.
15 and 10. He had a real nice line. He is 9,300. I think it'll be tough for him against Bam. But again, on the showdown slates and specifically on FanDuel, he's only 9,500 on FanDuel for the one game slate.
Right.
And you have to obviously play one guy from Iran on that team, at least one. He's my favorite value for that slate, and we will provide full lineups for our members for that. So join us if you'd like to participate in that. But on the main slate, 9,300 is a little difficult because of Bam. So I may end up fading Iran on the main slate, but I am going to play the showdown slate and get a couple of those guys, a couple of those starters, but not Kasemi.
Gotcha. This this is an interesting game. I've been game scripting this in my head over and over the last couple of days, trying to determine, is this fade Iran, just expect the tremendous blowout and go from there. But, I really think, I do think that the U.S. will hammer them. I really do. However, I don't know if Iran empties the bench early and, plays their guys that just, could get them beat by 70. So, U.S. doesn't have any bad players on their bench. I mean, those guys, at the end, Jeremy Grant didn't even get in this last game, and look what a fine player he is. So, I'm going to risk a little bit here, even in my cash games. I'm going to have some exposure to the Iran team. I was extremely impressed with the two guards and their scoring ability to knock down shots and get some steals and create some backdoor cuts. And so Jamshid, whatever the rest of that name is pronounced, and he's only 3,600. He's a shooting guard. And even in a 40-point game, I think Iran sticks with a couple of their guys they count on to make it a fair game. They were getting beat by 20 against the Czech Republic, and it didn't look as though there were any white flags being, flown. They were putting their regular guys in there, and they made that huge comeback. So maybe that gives them a little extra confidence. I think that as insane as it sounds, I may have two guys from Iran on my team and no Americans on the DraftKings board. And it seems backwards, but consider the fact that Iran has some key guys. I like Jamshid and I like Yakshadella that guy. Mm-hmm. So he's only 4,000. So to get two guards that played those big of minutes and did that well, I mean, they had 26.8 and 34.8 fantasy points in game one, and you combined, they're only 7,600. So I think they play more even in a big blowout. I think that the USA is certainly going to play at a fast pace, and I think the USA does a ton of substituting, and I think these guys get decent run. I also do want to give your I nicknamed him Who's Your Haddadi. And he definitely gets a little bit of a mention because who you remind me a little bit of, Andrew, like Boban. You get the ball to him inside, he can finish, he's going to rebound because he's got to be 7'1", maybe. Yeah. He's huge. Yeah. And he has a nice adept passing. Even when they ran it to him at the high post, he had a few backdoor passes, bounce passes. So, he's not bad. I think I agree with you on FanDuel. I think he's a no-brainer at that low 9,500 mark. But to be 9,300 in this game, is he athletic enough for the Bams and even JaVale McGee's or, whomever? I think he's a decent play, certainly a fine GPP play on the DraftKings, just because he could have a solid game, and if he gets those extra minutes, like I'm expecting some of the main guys to get. But after those three, really don't trust anybody else in this group, except there is the guy you mentioned too, Nick Barami, he was decent, but to me, it looked a little bit more like he wasn't going to be one of the main guys going forward. I think the three guys I mentioned are really the three guys I've got some interest in, and I may get as many as two of them on DraftKings and one on FanDuel. So I know that's a little surprising, but you got to game script some of these out and figure out minutes, usage, and how that's all going to work. And if Team USA is up 40 or 30 or whatever, it's not going to be lockdown defense. They're going to give up some threes and get up and down the floor. So we'll see. A little risky, but I like the play.
How about on the U.S. side? Do you think that any of these guys with their high price tags are going to be worth it, or is it going to be spread out too much?
Well, it's like we said the first game. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys over 7,000. So that's just ridiculous. You have Jeremy Grant's 10th at 7,100. He didn't even get in the game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you afford many of these guys? Not really. I mean, yeah, you can put one in there. Right now, I have none, Andrew, but I get the fact that, Durant and Lillard are basically going to be our two main go-to guys. But in this game, I really don't see anybody getting over 25 minutes max. That's just, I think we hand it to them. I think we rotate, who knows? Our high scorer in this game could be somebody like Keldon Johnson or, who knows? I mean, it really is like playing the lottery, trying to figure this one out. They're all good enough against an undermanned team like this to do well. So I'm just not going to go there as a cash player, spend 10-4 for Durant or 10-2 for Lillard. It just seems like a risk. Now, if we get up 40, where's that going to come from? Well, it's not like normal. Well, okay. So, in a Milwaukee Bucks game, if they do get up 30, it's going to be Giannis and Middleton and blah, blah, blah. It's not the case like that in a game like this because we have that early lead. They make the full rotation. Anything could happen. Booker could hit a couple threes and he gets to be the focus, or Levine gets hot. I mean, too much variable potential for who can be the high scorers. And, again, all the way down even to a Booker. He's our sixth highest paid or salaried guy, and he's 8,500. So I don't know, Andrew. I'm interested to see your take on this, but as of this moment, I don't have any of the U.S. guys in my lineup.
Well, for the main slate, the one guy that I'm leaning towards rostering is Bam. I don't think he's a must play, but he's the cheapest of the starters. He got big minutes, double. And really, I mean, if you're Pop and the coaching staff, who else do you really feel good about after the first game? I think you feel, well, obviously Holiday played well, but Bam was solid. They didn't lose because of Bam. That's
he
for
was
sure.
Good, but you got to remember he's got to guard who's your Haddadi.
Exactly. Yep. So it won't be a walk in the park for either of those guys, but Bam certainly has the quickness on Haddadi. And I think that's going to be fun to watch, actually, because Haddadi is a good defensive rebounder.
Yeah. So long.
Yeah. So he may prevent Bam from getting some easy ones unless Bam can really use his quickness. But for the rest of the starters on the main slate, I do think it's risky. They're so pricey, and they might smash while they're out there. But do they get enough run individually to make it work? I'm leaning towards fading them as well.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I think the close games like a Spain or whomever, yeah, you can really start thinking Durant and Lillard, but not in a game like this,
Yeah. For the showdown slates, though, I'll give a mini breakdown for people who are playing those.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a crack at the matchups because I was trying to sort this out as we get ready to build those lineups. I think Kazemi is their best defender. He's got the most size and athleticism, so I think they put him on Durant. So for what it's worth, I think Durant will have the toughest matchup. I think Haddadi will obviously guard Bam. And then I think Kabarami, number 14, he's got the most size out of those three wings. I think they put him on Draymond. And then I think they use Yakshalita Kordi and Jamshida Farabadi on Lillard and
Wow.
Levine, respectively. You like that?
How did you do that, man? Good Lord.
So
I'm never saying another Iranian name.
I wanted to throw that in there for fun, and to see if it comes out that way with the matchups.
Yeah.
But if it does, like I said, I think Durant has the quote unquote toughest matchup. I think Lillard and Levine are in a great spot to be able to use their quickness to get to the rim and either score, or if Haddadi bothers them, maybe they lob it to Bam or they kick it out for some open threes. So that's what's going to impact how I make my final decisions on the showdown slate today,
Right.
on both sites. But looking forward to it. And I will throw in that I think the guys that you're interested in for the main slate are interesting captain options on the showdown for DraftKings because they're so cheap, and then you can load up on the starters for the US. Because in that setting where you've got the 6 players and you can afford 4 or 5 of the really expensive US guys, then that could be worth a look.
And those 2 guys, that's exactly what I was thinking. I won't play both of them in a showdown, but one of them could slide all the way up to that top spot. And just real quickly for our listeners that may not be up to speed on this or just jumping into it, with Olympic basketball, DraftKings is offering the whole deal. Every game, whether US is playing or not, if it's 4 games today, 2 games tomorrow. So they're covering everything, which is awesome. I mean, hats off to DraftKings. I'm so glad that they stuck with it and did the full deal, because I think that's where we get our best edge. And there's a lot of really good contests. Now on FanDuel, as Andrew said, it's strictly the Team USA games, and they're all showdown slates. So that's a completely different deal. And then on Yahoo, they're not providing any contests at all. So if you do come with us, and again, great time to come with us at DFS Coach Talk, we offer a 3-day pass for $10. We just laid out our brand new summer special, which is from now all the way until September 7th, right before the kickoff of football. That's only $88. You can sign up right at dfscoachtalk.com and catch all of our insight from there. And we're able to give out full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo. So these lineups that we build for that Team USA showdown, you'll get both Andrew and I's hybrid / cash lineups there. And then Andrew also provides a GPP. So that will be great. And on the DraftKings side, we're now going to go back into, we were going a 6-man core cash hybrid lineup and GPP. We're going to go back to a clip.
For hoops.
5-man
core, yeah.
Sorry about that.
For hoops,
6 baseball.
Yeah.
But and we're going to go back to the coach's clipboard, which, we feel is one of the most advantageous ways to play DraftKings. We're going to give you a core of 5 highlighted guys, and then a group of selection of other players that we feel are the next rung that you can fill out your roster with based on, who you like, who we're talking about here. It gives you a little skin in the game, and it stays within the DraftKings guidelines, which we always do. So anyway, wanted to lay that out there for those people that don't know how that's flying right now. And, stick with us, because it can be confusing if you're trying to manage it on your own. Because like tonight, these 4 games, it's funny because we'll watch one game. I'll watch the second. I probably won't make the third. I'll be asleep. But then I'll wake up in the morning to watch the 4th. So It's really quirky, but just follow it on DraftKings, follow it with us here at DFS Coach Talk, and we'll make sure Andrew, I'm going to call it right now. I think we're going to have an optimal lineup on DraftKings very soon.
I agree.
In this Olympics event.
Yeah, I've got a lot of confidence in these lineups coming up. I'm really looking forward to it. So if you do sign up through our website, then we will send you an email to invite you into our Discord. All right, Coach, let's go to the second half of the slate. We've got Australia and Italy at that 4:20 a.m. game, that middle of the night question mark of whether we'll be watching that one live or on tape.
Yeah,
but
exactly. That's the KBO game.
that's the KBO game. And it is a good matchup. Australia and Italy, they both won their first games. Australia favored by 7.5, 174 total, which is nice. And
Yes.
we're back in Group B here. And this one, I do like this game. I'd like to get significant exposure to it. I'll start with the Australian side. Our man Patty Mills was just on fire. 9,800. He's playable, a little expensive. Ingles, the other big stud from the NBA, 9,200. He didn't do quite as much, but he is playable. He's a little cheaper, small forward option. And then the rest of the starting lineup, we had Dellavedova, Landau, and Baines. Delhi only played 16 minutes. He was solid. Landau didn't do too much. Baines, 15 minutes, 4 points, 5 rebounds, underwhelming, but he's only 3,900 as a center. I could see him getting closer to 20 minutes and paying off the price tag. He's not my favorite option, but I think he's playable. And then on the bench, we had your man Exum was solid. He got to 24 minutes, decent across the board. The thing with him is the injury history, and some players just have it. Unfortunately, he's had some significant ones. And even in that game, you saw he slipped on the court and looked all worried, and then he did twist his ankle later.
Yeah.
He's just an injury waiting to happen. So
no question.
At 5,200, he's a shooting guard, which is nice because you need one, and he's an option, but always risky in my book, especially because he does take threes. If he's not hitting, then it could be a problem. Thybulle was awesome with his 5 steals, but he's really expensive at 8,200. So for the main slate, I'm not going to go there. Nick K played really nicely, and he's a center at 4,300.
Yeah.
So interesting little choice between K and Baines if you want to take one of these guys. He did get a few of his buckets late in garbage time. So I don't know if he does quite as much here, but again, I would like exposure to this Australian team. Big game here against Italy. And this is a fun team to watch with when they go, a little bit smaller, when they have Mills, Ingles, Thybulle, and Exum out there. So if you take one or two of those guys, I think you'll be in a pretty good spot.
Definitely. And, I think this is the best game of the 4, and that's a bummer. It's the one in the middle of the night. But, after watching these teams play, they're both pretty good. And Italy's got a lot more firepower than I expected. They play hard. But, I want to mention, too, because you may very well have mentioned that USA-Iran line. But the only reason I want to pull out real quickly these lines is the over-under does have some effect. Like that was huge for us the first round, because it was a 22-point difference in the over-under. We don't have that today. So just real quickly, even though you've mentioned them, I'm going to say Nigeria being 4.5, 165.5, and then the USA right now I have just ticked down. So money on Iran coming in. It's only 39.5 now, Andrew.
Bargain is an opportunity.
Yes. And then it's 166.5. So that one's the same. And then the last game I'll mention now is you've got France favored by 9.5, 164.5. So those are all close. The one that gets the little bump here is this game, and it's Australia by 7.5, but it's 173.5. So I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're talking 9 extra points, as we always talk about, that's like 25 extra DFS points to be dispersed amongst players. So, just something I wanted to bring up at that point, because it makes this game even a little bit more targetable, because watching Italy play, I don't think they'll come in here and lay an egg as good as Australia is. And maybe because there was so much drama about Australia playing Nigeria, both being medal contenders in that first round, could there be a smidgen of a letdown? Could there, they not have the gas pressed completely down here, starting out with Italy? Not that they want to, but just psychologically, sometimes that happens. So, I think it gives Italy a little bit better chance here. And, I was really impressed with both sides of this. So now as far as Australia goes, you've got Patty Mills at 9,800 and Joe Ingles at 9,200 and then Thibault at 82. So they have three super expensive guys. We talked about this. They seemed to be a little overpriced with the depth that they have. But I'll tell you what, if there's the possibility of fitting Mills or Ingles in, I would, one of those two, I think, is just a very smart play. I don't think you can afford both. Too many, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. I do agree with you. Thibault's still a little overpriced for some of the offensive output that you would expect from him. So, it's a tough call here, and I haven't made my decision. I'm still a little bit with my guy, like you mentioned. I used Dante Exum, only 21.8 fantasy points, and I'm hoping he gets a little bit more run. But at 5,200, a guy that I think can put up 30 fantasy points, I think, that would be decent. So he's still on my radar. And also the guy that you mentioned that caught my interest, but I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to watch him closely, is Kay, the big guy for Australia. We know Baines got hurt against the U.S. We expected he may or may not play. He played limited minutes, though. So does that mean, he's going to get more minutes as he feels better, or is he really going to split time with Kay? I want to watch that, because if Baines stays, teens minutes, then Kay becomes in play, because he's pretty good. I was impressed with the level of his play, his mobility. He was almost to the 30-point mark, and he's only 4,300. And it seems like most of the centers in this Olympic pool are overpriced. And if he's going to be the main center for Team Australia, I think you got to have him into consideration. And I may even put him in a GPP this go around. So, but after that, a lot of guys that just, I'm not comfortable right now with Landell, Dellavedova, Golding, any of those guys. I think it's just too risky because their depth is there. I don't think this is going to be a blowout, so you're not going to get, junky run from some of those guys. It makes sense. Make the decision between Mills and Ingles. It's only $600 difference, so that can make a difference. And then I think you consider an Exum here again, or a possibility of K. So I like the Australian side in this game. Italy played fast. They shoot a lot of threes. This could be a key game on the slate. And I don't know, maybe it gets ignored a little bit because it's that middle of the night game. That could add a couple of reduced ownership points that may be a difference maker as well.
Absolutely. All right, well, take us through the Italian side.
Viva Italia. Here we go. Yes. First of all, Gallinari at 8,300 is the first guy I want to talk about. Can I fit him in there is the question. I have a couple lineups built. My first lineup, he didn't quite make it. The second he did, but he looked great. I wasn't sure how much they were going to roll him in there with just, being added to the team. But, he got his shots up. He's going to get some rebounds for you. He just does, because he crashes the glass. Not that he's a great rebounder, but I think he'll get some here. And he's got to be in consideration as one of my favorite Italians. I just really impressed with, the fact that he just looked like he fit right in. He was right in their rotation. He's played for Italy before, so this isn't like his first time out there by any stretch. So I think he's got to be considered. The other guy that I think you really have to look at here, and I was shocked at Nicolo Melli. He looked good. He didn't look super old to me. He shot the ball well. He got great minutes, and he's only $4,500. So it's just one of those value things. This is a guy that really should go 7-8x in my opinion at that price. So super high on Melli right now, and I think he deserves a big time look. Mannion, not as high on. He disappointed me a little bit. He did play decent minutes, but he wasn't the man, as you would say, as far as handling the point by himself. Only had 21 fantasy points, so not going to go there. He's 5,800. But, there are other options. I can never say Fonacecchio, whatever. He's 6,200. He can score. You also have the guy that everybody's probably going to go to here because shooting guard is weak. And to know he had 31.3 fantasy points. He's only 4,800. He did look like a nice ball player. I mean, he looked like the real deal. I like him a lot, but my concern, Andrew, is he's over chalky and regresses a little bit. So I'm trying to find that slight edge, but he certainly deserves to be discussed here because in reality, he was one of the best players on the floor also. But for me right now, I'm all over Melli. Gallinari's a big option, Fonacecchio, and to know those four guys, I want to have some exposure in a combination there. And again, I want to have maybe three guys of my roster come out of this game, not just because it's the highest total, but just from watching it, the way these teams both attack the basket and shoot threes. I think you're going to get a lot of up and down and some real good possible results. And I think you're going to need some guys, at least two, maybe three or four from this game to take something down.
Yeah, I agree. I like this game, and I like some of these prices on the Italian side. You mentioned Melli and maybe a 7-8x return, and I think we need to salivate at 7 or 8x return potential on this slate because we talked about it some with our members. The way that these prices are set up, the way that the DFS points are distributed, you're just not going to get a normal 6x return on every player, even in the winning lineup. The winning lineup on DraftKings in the last slate had, I think, 4 snowflakes.
Yeah.
Which, on a regular NBA night, that means you don't cash.
No.
But you can win with some of these guys that only put up 15 fantasy points because you have to fill out these, shooting guard, small forward positions where there aren't many good players. So don't be afraid of that. Just keep playing with the lineup. But I think Melli is locked in. I mean, 4,500 at a power forward for a guy who can get you 30 fantasy points. So I love him. Fontecchio, I think, is in the mix too at 6,200, and nice that he's got the flexibility of small forward or power forward.
Right.
He shot it so well in that last game. I mean, he went 5 for 5, so it's easy to say he shot well on the threes, but he looked good too. He shot with confidence. He's a scorer. He played 30 minutes. I like him. Tonnet, like you said, he might be a little chalky, but I do like him because he's in that category of do-it-all type guards who can do a little bit of everything. Yeah. And I think he's even a better shooter than Okogie. He had a nice line. He played 32 minutes. He's scrappy. I like him. Mannion was not quite the man, like you said. And he was another example of a guy who started the first half. He did not start the second half. Paola came in and started. Yeah. So that hurt his minutes a little bit, which was actually a little bit surprising because Mannion scored 7 points in the first few minutes of the first quarter, and then he didn't score again until the fourth.
Yeah, tell me about it. I was in pain the entire time.
And so that's the other thing you see, that you just don't get the normal rotation and rhythm of the NBA games because you have 8 fewer minutes.
I think these coaches are trying to figure it out. I mean, you got to learn as you go. It's like I equate it to when I'd coach an AAU team and you put a bunch of good guys together. You may have a 1 or 2 practices, whatever, but you got to, guys that practice great don't always play great. So I think that's what these guys are finding out and why you're seeing, I'd say a third of these teams switch their lineup from the beginning of the game to the start of the second half. That tells you it's a work in progress,
Yeah. And then one other in between the box score nuggets from the first set of games. Pollinara, number 33, he was set to start the game for Italy. He was out there on the court. And then at the last second, he was pulled off the court and they brought on Vitali. number
Yeah.
31, who ended up only playing 7 minutes. It looked to me like a situation, coach, where maybe they'd put the wrong starting lineup at the scorer's table or something, and the referees were like, "No, Pollinari, you can't start." So
Wow.
he left and didn't play well. He went 0 for 6. I think it may have thrown him off a little bit because
Sure.
he's coming in here as a good scorer, but just had an off night. So he's a deep GPP option at 5,300. I
Yeah.
do prefer Fontecchio, but so that one again didn't matter that he didn't start. He's going to get some good minutes. But then here's one where I do think it might matter who starts. Gallinari, I agree with what you said about him, but if he comes off the bench again, and Thibault comes off the bench again for Australia, I think Thibault will guard him and give him trouble. He's a tremendous defender, like you described on the show yesterday. And so I think Gallinari won't have an easy go at it. So for the main slate at 8,300, I'm going to fade Gallinari for that reason.
Okay. I think Gallo starts. That again, I have no knowledge of that whatsoever. He came off the bench and they won, so you would think they'd stay with the same rotation. But remember, that was his first game with the team. So I think he gets in there and gets some extra minutes, but we'll find out.
Yeah, he could. And if they announce that, then maybe Australia will start Thibault. So let's keep an eye on that.
Well, let's hope this Italian coach stays nice and quiet.
All right, last game of the slate. It'll be 8 a.m. Eastern. It's France and the Czech Republic. As you said, France the favorite here of two teams that won back in Group A here. So France 9.5-point favorites, 164.5. The over/under. France coming off the win over the U.S. And Fournier was the star. Really played well offensively. Scored 28 points.
Yeah.
I think he's playable at 7,500, so he's the pay-up shooting guard option you could consider. Batum, solid return, even though he didn't do much offensively.
Right.
He did play 31 minutes. He's 5,600 as a small forward. I like him as an option here. And this is a big game here. France, they want to go 2-0 to make sure that they're going to get to the next round. And meanwhile, Czech Republic, they got the win against Iran, but if they lose this one and then they lose to US, they're on the outside looking in to try to come in as a 3 seed. So I think this is also going to be a real battle.
Definitely.
And
it's
so
almost an elimination game, let's face it.
Yeah. Yep. So, I think these starters, these veterans are going to get good minutes. So Fournier, Batum are in play. Yabusele, 3,300 power forward. Again, that's a real nice value if you want to pay down there to pay up somewhere else. DeColo, really like how he looked, but 7,900 is a little much for me on this slate. I like some of the other point guards who are cheaper a little bit better. Gobert, 10,000. He is a pay up option. Not my favorite on this main slate. But we'll see what he does. Efficient again in his 29 minutes last time out. Now with the bench, I was impressed with Fall as the backup big, 7 and 4 in 11 minutes.
He can play, but man, the minutes, geez, that's crazy.
Yeah, so for the full slate, I don't think I go there. Some of the other cheap centers I'd like more. You could get Baines for 500 more if you want to go cheap at center.
Yeah.
Poirier is a player that I like, but again, 11 minutes, not going there. And I wasn't impressed with Hurdle, really. TLC, classic TLC game, not enough. So really, it's only a couple of the starters in play for me for France.
Yeah, it's funny. I immediately am looking at, and this is very unusual because I don't play this guy in the NBA much because I just don't think he has an offensive presence enough. But I think because the fact that Gobert's 10,000, I mean, even if he was 98, it wouldn't have the impact. But when you look at buying up to somebody on this slate, and you have the same kind of prices for Lillard and Durant, and that's priced over some of the other studs, I don't think Gobert gets owned very much. I think he's going to be the forgotten guy here. I really do. I think he may be a single-digit ownership kind of guy, and that intrigues me. That leverage with a guy that I think that can do well in the interior against what I thought were a few holes in the interior game of the Czech Republic. I've had some success predicting it in the past. I think this could be one of those games where Gobert approaches that 20 rebound mark. And the reason, like I say, this is somewhat of an elimination game. Both teams really need it. And I have a good feeling, that Gobert could throw one of those 12 and 21 kind of games, which at that point at 10K, I mean, it's a monster win. So, and some blocks. So we'll see. I haven't made that final decision, and I do think it will be a little bit contrarian, but I like the potential upside again against a team where I think he'll get 4 or 5 rebounds just by default against the interior of the Czech Republic. So I want to start with him because I thought that would surprise you somewhat. I agree with you on Batum. He didn't score really, and he's only 5,600. He did the other stuff, which he'll always do, and he's going to get minutes because of his defense and experience. And I think he'll score a little more. So at that price, good value guy that can make it work. And I think his floor is a little higher than most guys at that price range, and his ceiling, I think, is higher as well. So he's a good risk to take from the French side. I really was impressed with De Colo. I had given up on him as far as being one of the key guys for France because he had been around so long, and I just thought that they'd, go more towards some of the newer guys, but he was a real leader out there. I mean, Fournier was hitting the shots, but if you, as a coach watching it, if you said, this is the guy I need on the floor, he's sort of the coach on the floor, it was De Colo. He was played smart basketball, was efficient in a lot of the things that he did. And I'm tempted to try to get him in there. And right now I'm on that. Is it De Colo or Satoransky, back and forth, because I like both of them and they're in the same price range. And that's the decision. And great call on him. I know he was in your main lineup and he did terrific. The guy I'm going to back away from is Fournier. I mean, we've seen it 9 million times in the NBA. He'll have a game where he hits just a boatload of threes like that, and then where he backs down a little bit. And they're certainly going to put their better defenders on him. And he's not an ancillary stats guy either, so not looking to go there. And really the rest of their bench, I know, we were both high on Yabusele, but he just, he got hurt. He still might be okay, but I just don't think there's a reason to go there. Now, if you're in a real salary squeeze and you're down to the wire, for 3,300, he's not a bad roll of the dice because I do think he's in their rotation and he should be okay. So after that, though, really not interested in any of the other bench from France, but I do think it's going to be a great game, and I think you need to have some exposure.
All right, last team of the slate, the Czech Republic on the other side.
Yeah, I mentioned Satoransky, and he had 35 fantasy points last game, and he didn't shoot the ball well. I'm back to really, really wanting to play him because of the lack of depth with that team and the role that he has to play. First of all, I think France, like if I was betting these games, I think France is a great play. I think they're going to win this game by double digits. I really do. I think France is better than people gave them credit for, and I don't think the Czech Republic is that great. So I do like the same two guys I liked in the first round, and that's Satoransky and Jan Vesely. I think both of those guys are going to be the key go-to guys. They're going to get the most shots. They're going to get the most minutes. And yeah, there was, Schild was good. Otta's going to get some minutes. Balvin, who we played super duper cheap, he's 3,700 now, was off the bench and decent. But for me, very simply here, if they're going to stay in this game, which I think they will till toward the end, I think France pulls away. But I think that Sato and Vesely are the two best players and safest, highest floor, highest ceiling. And I think they're both good cash plays.
Yeah, I think they're solid as well. I'd like to see Vesely get a few more shots. That's another thing that I've noticed here in the early games. Really guard dominant, lots of 3-point shots, and they don't. Sometimes it's like they'll run the first play for the big, and then
Right.
forget about him for the rest of the first half.
Yeah.
Now Vesely's sort of in between. We know he can kind of streak and slash and do different things. And at 6,900, I do like him. Balvin, he was great for his price,
Oh
but
yeah.
now he's got Gobert on the other side. So
Yeah. And his
tougher
price came
situation.
up too.
Yeah.
So
And then, Shilb, but like you said on the show yesterday, I like how Shilb looked really solid.
he was
Uh,
good.
yeah, nice value at 4,700. Auda was good as well. He's something you can rely on. But he's in the $5,500 range. There's a bunch of other forwards in that range. Who I give the slight edge to.
Yeah.
And so that's about it for the Czech Republic.
And
So
France can defend too. They can defend.
yep. Yeah. Holding Team USA to 76 points is no small feat.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's the 4-game rundown. Hope that has everybody ready to go on DraftKings. Let us know if you have any questions. You can find us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. You can find the coach at JOESARVADI. You can find me at Language Olympic. And again, if you'd like our lineups, then just join us at dfscoachtalk.com. Sign up for whichever length of membership you'd like, and then we will send you an email and get you into our Discord. We're going to give out the lineups tonight at about 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Correct.
We'll have the coach's clipboard for DraftKings. We'll have the full lineups for FanDuel and the Showdown slate. So we'd love to have you. dfscoachtalk.com. And then on YouTube, if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, hit the alert button. The podcast will continue to post at various hours and in various years, Coach. Whenever the slate is ready to go, we'll get them up there.
Maybe I was thinking about going back in time, like Back to the Future, and having that Sports Illustrated with 20 years of results. There you go. So that's what I was trying to pull off. But yeah, it's a great time to jump aboard. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. This is one of my favorite times of the year. And everybody said, well, there's no football, there's no NBA. This year, right now, with the Olympics and the NBA Summer League, I'm telling you, we have a better edge in those than any buddy in the industry, period. And then, like tonight, we have a 15-game main slate in Major League Baseball on top of that. And now we also have the Golf Olympics that we're going to be providing and doing a podcast for. So, man, this is fun. And if you want to watch 24 straight hours of sports, you can do it.
Yes, you can.
And you can have DFS action on all of it. That's what's amazing.
Wall-to-wall coverage. So,
it
is a lot of fun and looking forward to this slate. So thank you all for tuning in. On behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you next time as we look to crush it in DFS.